The historic address from President Joe Biden sharing his decision to step aside in November's race and endorse his Vice President Kamala Harris in his place. Surrounded by family and close friends, Biden telling fellow Americans their choice for president this November will determine whether the country moves forward or backward with hope or hatred.
I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. That's the best way to unite our nation.
4 days after shaking the American political landscape, tonight Joe Biden delivering a historic address from the Oval Office, speaking to the American people about the consequential decision to step down as a Democratic candidate for president.
The defense of democracy, which is at stake, I think is more important than any title. I draw strength and I find joy in working for the American people. But this sacred task of perfecting our union is not about me. It's about you, your families, your futures. It's about we, the people.
I was in the Oval Office as part of the rotation of media organizations that are allowed to cover the president in close proximity. Inside the room, it was emotional and intimate. Family members dialed in intensely to what the president was saying. His daughter, Ashley, clearly emotional with her eyes closed for a good portion of the speech. At one point, grabbing her mother's hand. That isn't typical in an Oval Office address to have that many members of the family, but I think they recognized how big this moment was for their father or grandfather, and frankly, for history.
In the 11-minute address, the president reiterating his full support behind his VP, Kamala Harris.
She's experienced, she's tough, she's capable. She's been an incredible partner to me and a leader for our country.
When the speech ended and the TV networks went off, the room broke into spontaneous applause. The family members and staffers who had gathered there looking at each other and looking at him with just elation, but really strong emotions in every direction. He told people in the room, this has been an honor of a lifetime.
It's been just 27 days since that disastrous debate performance watched by over 50 million on CNN and simulcast on ABC.
He didn't do well at all. He did not do well at all.
Those 90 minutes upending an otherwise unremarkable political season. The week that followed quickly transformed into some of the most unpredictable and unprecedented political calamities in recent history.
The last few weeks have been historic in so many different ways. And then to have in the mix of all of this, just an absolutely horrifying assassination attempt on a candidate.
Take a look at what happened.
It's just been, head spinning, to say the least.
So how did we get here?
What happened in the last couple of weeks after President Biden's awful debate performance was some serious soul searching and then some serious political knife fighting that resulted in the sitting president essentially ousted from his own party, ousted from a nomination that he fought for and earned in the primaries because of concerns over his health.
People, allies of the president, certainly had whispered concerns to us. I think there were a lot of people who had concerns, but they were willing to sort of write them off. The debate caused people to change their view about that too, to sort of re-examine some of their own memories and their own experiences with the president and think, wow, you know what, I did see some of this earlier on. I just didn't want to believe it.
The president's recent gaffes and fumbles are just the latest in what some say is a concerning history.
Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. He's going to beat President Putin. President Linsey. I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she's not qualified to be president.
It was really the last 2 years of his presidency. The interactions with the press were much tighter, and you just saw him less and less and less. And this bubble that was forming around him was getting thicker and thicker.
After weeks of both private and public pressure from at least 40 Democratic lawmakers.
But I believe the time has come for President Biden to pass the torch.
It is time to step aside and turn this over to a new generation.
As well as voters and top supporters like George Clooney to step down as the nominee. On Sunday, President Biden posting this letter, saying in part, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term.
In terms of his legacy, he got into this race because of democracy. He wanted to strengthen democracy. He called it the central cause of his campaign. And he did so, I think, by wresting the White House from Donald Trump in 2020. And I think that is his legacy.
Over the next 6 months, I'll be focused on doing my job as president. That means I'll continue to lower costs for hardworking families, grow our economy. I'll keep defending our personal freedoms and our civil rights, from the right to vote to the right to choose.
We saw Speaker Johnson come out saying that if the president is not able to or fit to be a candidate, he also is not fit to be president, and calling on him to step down. Now, the White House has resisted that and dismissed those concerns. And there's no indication right now that we're getting, or that I'm hearing from my sources, that the president plans to leave office. Instead, we're hearing that he wants to burnish his legacy.
But this moment in history, not as unprecedented as it may seem.
Let me say this. Of those to whom much is given, much is asked.
Leading up to the election of 1968, incumbent President Lyndon B. Johnson withdrew from the race at the end of March.
I shall not seek, and I will not accept, the nomination of my party for another term as your president.
If you look at 2024, it looks a lot like 1968 in certain respects. It was a very divisive year, 1968. It was very turbulent. There were a number of events that played out that felt like that gave us a great deal of uncertainty in this country. We're seeing that today.
The stakes for the country are once again sky high.
This election got a whole lot more interesting. It was always consequential, but now I think the focus on it is going to match the gravity of the moment.
And like then, the Democrats have a new name at the top of the ticket.
We're not afraid of hard work. We like hard work, don't we?
Vice President Harris, the presumptive nominee, has raised more than $100 million in new donations, and nearly 60,000 new volunteers signed up to help her campaign. That according to Harris's team.
We just had the best 24 hours of grassroots fundraising in presidential campaign history.
We've seen a real surge in enthusiasm and excitement for Vice President Harris that she'll have to build on. And I think the whole campaign gets reset now, 100 or so days out. Things look a lot different than they did just a week ago.
Immediately, the Republican ticket began to hit back at Harris's ostensibly crowning as a Democratic nominee. Former President Trump speaking tonight at a rally in Charlotte, North Carolina, going after his new rival.
The vote for Kamala is a vote for 4 more years of dishonesty, incompetence, weakness, and failure.
GOP vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance painting her as complicit in what many conservatives see as the failures of the Biden administration.
The border crisis is a Kamala Harris crisis.
But resurfaced comments by Vance back in 2021, drawing the ire of many on social media after he questioned some Democratic lawmakers, including Harris, for not having children on Fox News.
We're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too.
Vice President Harris has 2 stepchildren.
You certainly are already seeing some rhetoric from the right that has been problematic. I think that we're going to have to sort of buckle up for the next few months because it's going to be wild.
For the Democratic Party, the weeks to come will be unlike anything in recent memory. With only 26 days into the Democratic National Convention and just over 100 days until the election.
History is in your hands. The power is in your hands. The idea of America lies in your hands.